Premier League is back and Arsenal are on top of that table at this moment in time. Can they keep it going? That was the conversation going into the World Cup. We are now on the other side of it. And we've been chatting about different teams and if it's good to have a little break or if it's not. I think with Arsenal, I actually sort of spun it in the way of feeling that was kind of like a line that they could get to and sort of sprint to. And they've got to be absolutely delighted with how it's gone so far. But they step into the restart with Gabriel Jesus, who's been integral initially with goals, but then they did dry up a little bit. But his overall play has just been fantastic for them. And he's out for the next 3 months as part of his recovery. And it leaves Arsenal incredibly light up front. Of course, there's a January window. But in the meantime, it looks like it's probably going to be Eddie Nketiah, who's made 12 Premier League appearances, hasn't got a goal yet. A lot of those have been from the bench. I was going to go to Kweku, but Nubaid's giving me that face. And it's a face that says to me, I'm not sure I'm rating Eddie Nketiah and I don't think he can feel these shoes. Would I be right in suggesting that?
I feel for him because when he got his contract, I felt that's the contract that he sort of played for after the brace at Stamford Bridge. Got the number 14 shirt and I thought something's happened in these contract negotiations. Then they signed Jesus. He fell to the back burners. And now they're going, we need you to save us for the next 3 months. Or we go in January and we sign someone. That's a lot of pressure on a guy that's not really been in that situation before. And I think also...
Isn't that his job, though?
Yeah, it is. Like, it is. Yeah, that's very fair. Like, that is his job. But I don't think Arsenal are incredibly unlucky because if there was one player they really could do with not getting injured this World Cup...
I think we spoke about this,
didn't we?
We did.
And you cursed him. It's the one player that's got injured during this World Cup, and now they're in a situation where either he goes and to be fair, he is Pep's disciple. I feel he'll have a different fix. I don't think he'll go, Eddie, go and do what Jesus does, because I just don't think that's feasible. It's not possible. Eddie Nketiah is a penalty box striker. He might get a couple of goals here and there. I'm just proper worried for Arsenal because I'm rooting for him as a neutral.
Nearly choked on his own words. Amazing, he literally did. I'll pick up the mate. Do you know what? I guess the question here is, because he did really well at the back end of last season, there are a couple of things in that potion in terms of that good form. And one I think is just so true with football is when you're looking to sign a contract, you start forgetting about pressure. You start thinking about what's there in front of you and if you can go and get that deal, and you stop fearing about anything. And he did brilliantly last season. When he came in, there was a lot of pressure on him. And look, Arsenal fans will suggest that the reason they didn't get into the Champions League last season was because they didn't go and get a striker. They let Aubameyang go. Mm-hmm. But I think he did well. The question is that his ceiling or is that his norm last season? Do you not see? Because I think the thing to say as well is that he's not started games.
He's not started games, so he's averaged 13 minutes per game this season, and he's not been given the chance. I just don't foresee.
You two don't rate him.
I don't foresee a world where Arsenal win the Premier League and Eddie Nketiah started for them up top for 3 months. That's just not happening. Right. That's just not happening. And the expectation before Arsenal, before the break, was they beat Wolves convincingly. Martin Odegaard got the brace in that game, and everyone was like, Arsenal can go win this league. But that's Gabriel Jesus starting up top for them. There's no way that Eddie Nketiah can start for Arsenal and they can win the league.
Let's not forget that Jesus came in, and all the talk in the first part of the season was that they are title contenders because they signed Jesus and because they signed Zinchenko. You just got rid of one of those. And I think Arsenal simply have to go in the transfer market and find a striker, find a solution, or bring in a winger and play Martinelli through the middle. They, like you said, and it's not that I don't rate Eddie Nketiah. To clarify, Eddie, I do rate you, but I just think for 3 months to go and win a title with Eddie Nketiah up front, who hasn't played many minutes, it's a difficult ask.
Here's what I say about Eddie Nketiah, and he is quite a unique player that we don't see many of these kind of players anymore. He's a guy that you will go, what's he doing? Is he good at football? I can't figure out if he's good at football, but he scores. He scores goals. I'll chuck a name out there just because I'm a QPR fan. It's at the front of my head. Charlie Austin was not good at football, but his ability in that penalty box is what made him score 18 goals for a team that got relegated in the Premier League. And Eddie Nketiah, although I agree with you, I think you make a very good point in terms of, are you able to, you're so ready, are you able to win a Premier League with Eddie Nketiah up top? Maybe not, but can you get through a few months and will he provide output? I think you're being a little bit harsh.
88 senior games, 13 goals. I don't know if he scores goals. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. I think that's the old Nketiah.
No, but
I think we're saying he's not up to it, and I get it because he's kind of come through and it's taken so long for him to get minutes. And I think what is slightly damning is the fact that Arteta hasn't started him in a game.
Yeah.
And secondly, the fact that they were so desperate to get someone else in there and not make him the main man.
Yeah,
I get that.
I love his mentality when it comes to it as well. He was ready to embrace that number 14 shirt. When he signed that new contract, he talks about the weight of the shirt, and he wants to take this head on, and he will embrace the challenge in terms of his effort. I love him. I want him to convert and play for Ghana.
Him.
Well, no,
Oh, right.
no, because I want him to convert and play for Ghana. I like his personality. I like the way he goes about his business, and he's a striker.
He's got a striker's mind, doesn't he?
Mate,
yeah.
think about the amount of goals he scored for England under 21s. He's a record goal scorer, so he can score goals. Maybe we haven't
That wasn't
seen
on your list when you googled.
we
That's
haven't
how you
seen
manipulate stats.
but and again, he came from Chelsea's academy, so I've got an affinity. I've seen him kind of grow up, and he was supposed to be this guy who goes on to play for England and lead the line. It hasn't necessarily worked out. But this is trying to win the Premier League. And let's not try and realign what Arsenal's expectations were. When we went on the break, Arsenal fans, if you asked them, could you win the league? They'd say, yeah. Gabriel Jesus has now gone down with an injury. They can't do it with Eddie Nketiah.
Quick question.
Yeah.
If Arsenal have to play 3 months with Eddie Nketiah up front, do they win the league?
Can they win the league? As long as it's no more than 3 months. I think the problem you've got is the Europa League as well, and how you're going to kind of navigate that. I mean, I guess if Eddie Nketiah becomes that starting player, I do think he can score goals. I think the question is, this Arsenal side has found a way to find answers. And Gabriel Jesus, who again was on a bad run actually going into the break, people starting to go, hang on a minute, because you look at those numbers and go, you're not really scoring goals. But if you watch the game, you can see he offers up overloads. He goes and wins the ball in transition, which creates a pass that leads to a goal. Saka looks better and creates space for him. Martinelli, it's an overload on the left-hand side. All those things. So it's about kind of providing answers. So I think in terms of providing answers, and that's the bottom line when it comes to winning a Premier League, you haven't got a variation of answers when Nketiah's there, and he takes away a couple of the roles that Gabriel Jesus does. If you go into January and spend a bit of money, the rumour is 50 million is available. Apparently they wanted to use that 50 million on a defensive midfielder as backup for Thomas Partey, who can get injured sometimes. Douglas Luiz, they nearly signed him, didn't they, on deadline day? How would you use that money? Would you go, okay, let's put that to one side, El Nene can do a job, let's just get ourselves a striker? Or do you try and split it? What do you do?
That injury changes everything for Arsenal, because if talking to some Arsenal fans, their goal was to go and get another winger that can challenge Saka and Martinelli, and if they go out or get injured, then they can come in and it's a seamless transition. But now that injury to Gabriel Jesus has changed, it's changed things for Arsenal, and it reminds me of last January where they were messing around with Vlahovic for the whole month, and it didn't happen. And again, Arsenal were in that same situation where they're on the search for a striker, but this time it's a short-term solution. So what kind of profile player do you go and get? Do you go and get somebody who's going to challenge Jesus in terms of starting for Arsenal, or go and get a clear backup, which Nketiah kind of already is? It's a tough position. And then you've got the issue of Partey being so injury-prone. You listen to Arteta talk, he's got a lot of faith in Lokonga, and he thinks Lokonga can do that role when Partey goes down. But there's no doubt that the drop-off when Partey's injured is huge for Arsenal, and we saw it at the back end of last season. So there's a lot of questions to be answered, and I don't think 50 million sorts it.
I think go and get a striker on loan. João Felix apparently is available on loan. He's not quite a striker.
That's unbelievable if you can get him on loan, isn't it?
The thing is, though,
that can win you the Premier League.
It depends which João Felix arrives to the Premier League. What we've seen at Atletico is sometimes just doesn't really fancy it. He's a very technical footballer.
Does he fit Arsenal?
I think the thing is, if you go into the market and you go, we need a striker, beggars can't be choosers. You get the best one available, and then you go, we find a way to fit you into the system. He can also play out wide as well, so it might mean you start playing a bit of a false nine and have Martinelli running off him. Then there's also, can't pronounce his first name, so I'm just going to say Mudryk, who they were linked to, but apparently they want 100 million. And I go like, Arsenal probably were like, that's the signing we need, the option out wide. And now they're like, we're going to have to park you for a bit. We need to go get a striker on loan. We need to go get a midfielder. Midfielder is still the priority. I think if you lose Partey for a couple of months,
you're done.
Say bye-bye to the Premier League title. So go and get a Douglas Luiz or someone in backup. Go and get João Felix on loan. Sounds really easy. Just go and do it.
Well, do you know, the Nketiah thing's funny because they either need to really back him, Or if they're not, then they've given a guy a contract that they don't even want. I find that
isn't
really
that
odd.
that's a backup striker.
That's a backup striker. Yeah, but it's also not just the contract; it's the shirt number as well. It's everything that goes around it. It was. Before they signed Jesus, heralded as this is going to be the guy that leads the line for Arsenal going forward. And the problem for him is that if you want to characterise him or compare him to a player, you probably think like Jermaine Defoe. But Jermaine Defoe was not profitable in front of goal. Jermaine Defoe finished his chances. Eddie Nketiah is supposed to be that player, but we've seen it. He does miss quite a few big chances. I'm not saying that Gabriel Jesus doesn't. He did towards the back end of the season before the break. But if he is to lead the line for Arsenal, he's going to have to make sure he takes all of his chances because he doesn't offer much else apart from that.
I think a part of the number 14 thing would have been Eddie Nketiah did want to leave, and I think Arteta was in a situation where it's like, I either have to find some money to buy another striker, which probably takes away from me buying Zinchenko or Jesus or someone else. Yeah, so like now I keep this guy, and we just have to give him the number 14 shirt.
It's so obvious, wasn't it?
Yeah,
it did feel so obvious.
Yeah.
There feels like a real lack of belief in him. Cody Gakpo is another option. I know he's been linked with Man United, and I think there's going to be a few fights for strikers. 50 million, that's not going to be enough, is it, to get Cody Gakpo?
I think Arteta would have been watching that World Cup praying that Gakpo had a stinker, and he didn't. And now he's like, well, now that 50 pence I've got is gone. He could work, but if you don't have the money, you don't have the money. And I think Ten Hag and United have the spending power.
Okay.
But do you play Gakpo through the middle, or do you play him out left where he actually plays?
I think I would. I think he's got the size to do it. I think he's done that for Holland, and he's clinical as well. And actually, if he wants to drift out to the left, that's what Gabriel Jesus does anyway. So I think Gakpo would be a great fit for Man United or Arsenal.
Just one problem here for Arsenal, I think, is so far Arteta's transfers have been pretty nailed on. I think if you go and make a bad one here, we've seen with other clubs how long it can take to reverse that cycle. So don't fall into that trap.
Okay, so after all of that, in a sentence, by the end of January, I'm going to take loan off the table. You can't have loan, right? Do you spend the 50 mil on a striker, spend the 50 mil on a midfielder, or do you just wait and see how you go?
Saying taking...
And back Eddie. Back Eddie. What are you doing?
Saying taking loan off the table is like
In a sentence, I said.
It can be a long sentence.
Differ.
Taking loan off the table is like taking a steering wheel out of a car and going to still drive it. So I think Arsenal have to sign a striker with money, but if you have the option of a loan, take that on.
Okay, so I've just spent this whole video talking about how Arsenal fans were talking about them winning the league. But let's be realistic. Their goals at the beginning of the season was to finish in the top 4. They're top of the league. They're 5 points clear of Man City, but we all kind of have a feeling Man City are going to finish ahead of them. Arsenal shouldn't make a rash decision and bring in a striker that's going to be probably surplus of requirements in the summer. Go and bring in a centre midfielder for the long-term process. Trust the process.
Okay, I agree with you. I think be brave, take your time, don't make any silly mistakes that you don't want down the line, like giving Eddie Nketiah whatever his contract was, because you clearly don't want him there. What do you guys think? Let us know in the comments below.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.